Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series with our friends down in the Netiv group down in Houston, Texas. And we will be broadcasting Rabbi Karmi Ingber live in Israel still. And he wants to talk today about Israel and the 70 nations, why some love and some hate. And I'm sure it's going to be interesting as always. So let's just jump right in and see how Rabbi Ingber is doing.
Okay, great to see you all.
Should,
Wonderful. As I said, we're here at the Holy Land, televising from the Holy Land, which I'm very happy to be here. I gotta tell you, Israel. I don't know if you know the word Yisrael means Yashar, straight to God. That's what it means actually. Different conjugations of it. That's one of the explanations. And one of the reasons why the land of Israel is so special is that you can experience and feel God's presence much more directly than you can in other places. And that's part of the specialness and the beauty of it. So what I want to talk about today is now that I'm here, and it just kind of struck me to discuss why is it that some people really hate the Jews and hate the land of Israel, and some people don't. Some people love them, but the majority not so much, especially when you listen to the news. If you listen to the news, Israel's an apartheid state. It's completely absurd. If you live here, it's totally not the case. My brother told me he had some Arabs that were working in his house, and they said back before they went years ago, they were all trying to move within the land of Israel because they knew they had rights here as opposed to being under Palestinian rule. The Arabs themselves wanted to be under Israeli rule because they knew they had rights. It's an old story. It's one of these canards that if you listen to the news or Facebook, you're living in a fantasy. It's not true. The Arabs here vote. The Arabs here have all rights that if they are Israeli Arabs, they are citizens, they have all the rights that they could possibly want. They can vote, they can live where they want, they can do whatever they want to do. So how come there is this whole canard? And again, I wanted to say, as far as the state of Israel, I want to be clear about this. The state of Israel is not yet the ideal state that's run by Jewish law. So there might be times that they are wrong. I'm not saying that they're, eventually the land of Israel will be run according to Jewish religious law, Torah law, and then the righteousness will be seen even more clearly. But even today, I mean, you look at the things that Israel, they're the first ones to send out rescue parties to help people. They go out of their way, sometimes even to a fault very often to a fault where they don't want to. I don't know if you know this, but you probably do, but one of the ways that Palestinian terrorists function is they send missiles and bombs from schools, from hospitals, because they know the Israelis aren't going to go and bomb those places. And they spend so much time trying to go around it. And they really take people as being human shields. And sometimes the Israeli government actually goes and endangers their own people, which I think is wrong. But they do that because they don't want to go and to cause these problems. So why does the world hate Israel so much? It seems to be the bastion of righteousness. I mean, go look at the Arab countries around and see if anyone gives the same rights to their Arab residents as the Jews in the land of Israel give to the Arab residents. You won't find it. So why is that? And more importantly, because this is obviously a new form of hatred, because the land of Israel, the state of Israel is now, is not a very old state, 1948. That's 70 something years, 74 years. But for thousands of years, people have hated the Jews. Why? And why some don't? Like many, not all of you here on this broadcast, see the world differently. So why don't see the world this way? Now, I want you to understand something. This is just fascinating because I sometimes have trouble understanding how people don't see truth when it's right in front of your eyes. I sometimes have trouble with that. So, for example, if you will read the book of Devarim, in English it's called Deuteronomy, you will get a clear explanation of Jewish history. Literally, it will tell you exactly what's going to happen. Something that is mind-boggling, because the Jews thousands of years ago accepted the Torah, and in the Torah it says that if you will not keep the commandments exactly as you're supposed to, you'll be sent out to the four corners of the earth. Who did that happen to? Well, I know one nation it happened to. I don't know any other one. You'll be persecuted. Well, yeah, I know one nation. Everything that it says it happened. And then even the more mind-blowing one we've discussed many times is that after saying you'll be persecuted, you will stay a small number, which is crazy because the amount of Jews there were in the world thousands of years ago, around the time of the Second Temple, were almost the same amount as the Chinese during the Ming Dynasty. They're almost the same number. As the billion Chinese, we have 14 million Jews still. I mean, and that says it in the text. It says you will stay Matei Mispar, you'll stay a small people, small number. So when you read that, you say, whoa, the Torah predicted everything that was going to happen. I'll tell you, even happened to me one time. My father-in-law, who was a Holocaust survivor, as were my parents, he once was very upset. He said to me, how could it be that that one Nazi with a rifle was chasing 1,000 of us? Well, just to explain to you how that was, they were masters at lying. And my own parents said to me there was a complete confusion about what was happening. We're just going to relocate you, send you here. It's for your own good. No one could imagine these people were so cruel and such barbarians. But he said, how could it be that one Nazi could chase 1,000? I fell off my chair. I said, you know what? It's a verse right in the Torah. It says, you will ask in the future how this could happen. How could one chase 1,000? Just what you asked me. So this was all predicted, the persecution and the hatred. Now, just to go through some of the history here. So obviously there were some Christians who wanted to use this as a proof against the Jews. As a matter of fact, the king of Prussia, King Frederick, once asked his servants how he knows God, and they said the Jews. But what they meant was the Jews were so downtrodden, and that was their sign of being correct. However, if you're a little bit knowledgeable of the text, you realize that that's absurd. Because in the text, it clearly says that Hashem says, Hashem will never leave his people. It says it right in the text. It says it there. I will bring you back to your land. I will guarantee that you will not be lost. Many, many, many verses are replete throughout the Torah. So you can't read one line and skip then 30 lines. You got to read the whole thing. So this is the promise that God gave to us, that we will have a challenge in our history. People will hate us, they'll persecute the Jews, but in the end, they'll be brought back to the land of Israel, which has already happened. Fantastic, great. So we're that much closer. So I want to start with a philosophical question. This is a philosophical question. If it says in the Torah, it says in the Bible, that people will persecute the Jews, they'll hate them and persecute them, us, Jewish people. So how could they be held accountable for it? A guy could say, hey, I was just doing what I was supposed to do. And yet we see many, many verses that says that Hashem will judge the people that persecute the Jews. So how could he judge them negatively if it says it was going to happen? It's a philosophical question, very important one. So I want to give you there's a few different answers. There's really four main answers to this question, but I want to talk about one of them today. And this is very important for you to realize. We have free will. We decide what we want to do. But don't ever mistake and think that God is not running the show. He's running the show. He gives you your free will, but he still moves reality where it has to go. So if you have a person that is a person that hates, he ends up being the messenger for the bad things. And he's punished because he's a person full of hate. Like, do you ever wonder why sometimes somebody might, let's say, there's a law in the Torah, for example, someone kills by accident. Very terrible thing. And you think, why did it happen to this guy? Well, I'll just start with a very not mystical reason, a very simple reason, because he drives his car like a maniac. Now, if he drives his car like a maniac, maybe that means he has a place where he lacks sensitivity to human life. And then he becomes the messenger for the bad things that happen. And therefore, when God judges, it says it by the Egyptians. It says that the Jews will be in exile in Egypt, and then God says, but I will judge them. And even the nation, the Egyptians, that you will be in their midst, you'll be a slave for the years you're in Egypt, then I will judge them. Why are you judging them if you said they were going to be in Egypt? Because not every Egyptian had to be a member of the bad squad who had hate in their heart and wanted to hurt the Jews. So God brought it out through the negative people. That's what's happening in the world. There are people who are full of hate, and when they end up being the emissaries to bring out bad, they're judged for that because they made themselves full of hate. And those who make themselves full of positive love, who want to do good things, then if you decide that's what you want to be, I guarantee you, God will move the reality that good things will come out through you. That's the way it works. And it's very powerful because so many things in our lives, we don't really know, like, why did that happen? How did that happen? Was I a person who ended up bringing good news or bad news? Right? So that's the first part to understand in the philosophical level. It starts with where you want to be. What is your will? What are we about? Bad people end up doing bad things, and they bring bad things into the world. People who want good end up, even on a cosmic level, good things come out through them. Now, but still, what makes it that some of these people hate the Jews and hate the land of Israel so much? I mean, it's like crazy. You look at you look at just politics. You have these countries that are killing people, the apartheid, and killing people, and plummeting and pillaging everything. And the UN, all it could talk about is Israel. It's mind-boggling. It's a person with an honest human being has to look and say, this is bizarre. So I want to explain this a little bit. So first, let's start out with, and I mentioned this to you once before, let's start out with what the person who was one of the evilest people in history, Hitler, Imach Shmo, his name should be erased, what he said about the Jews. And if you understand this, you'll start to understand where those people are coming from and where the righteous people, the righteous of the nations, are coming from a very different perspective. So what did Hitler say? He wrote in Mein Kampf, he said the Jews gave two scars to the world: the scar of the body and the scar of the mind. The scar of the body is the circumcision, and the scar of the mind is the moral conscience. Wow. Could you imagine someone saying that? Could you imagine such a statement? The Jews are so bad because they made people question if they were doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and therefore questioning and feeling a sense of responsibility if I do the wrong thing. It's amazing. That's one of the reasons he hated them, because they represented God in the world. Even when you see these Jews there are many Jews that are very confused, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be the first to admit it to you, and I have to admit it to you, because Unfortunately, in America and many places in the world, you see Jews who don't know anything about Judaism. And they make up these new philosophies, But that's what Hitler saw, that there was some place where every single person, even the one who really hates a Jew, feels that somehow they're representing God in the world, and they are a moral conscience because they have to bring into the world the Torah. And that's true. That is true. And that's why we're having this class, because it's a responsibility to be a light unto nations. God gave us a Torah. How could I go and say, I don't want to share it? He wants us to share it. This is the Torah that God has shared and brought into the world, that the whole world should be elevated. And therefore, it's a responsibility to be a light unto nations. But those who are anti that, they really click onto that point. Now let's go a little deeper. And I also may have mentioned this once before. And so this was this past week's Torah portion. There is one nation. We don't know who they are today because everyone's mixed up in the world. But there is one nation that this Torah tells us is very evil. And their whole desire was to ruin goodness in the world. Now, we don't know who these people are. We know certain signs of them. There's one definite sign of this nation called Amalek. One sign is the sign that the Nazis had, which was when it was time to decide about sending their resources to the front line for the war efforts, or using the trains to transport and kill Jews. They preferred to kill the Jews than save their own selves. That is a telltale sign of something that is very, very evil. And so I can't go and say a nation because we don't know but I could tell you that philosophy, that the Nazism, that hatred of goodness, that was the embodiment of this group called Amalek, which is mentioned in this week's Torah portion. And you're not gonna change them. This is their objective. And I would say it's when you'll see someone ascribes to the philosophy. Let's not say it's a people because people have free will. Let's say already, because we don't know who it is, but the sign will be when someone subscribes to these beliefs of the Nazis, essentially. That's a sign that we're talking about Amalek. Now, what happened in the history of this guy Amalek? Who is this guy Amalek? Who we say is certainly the spiritual forefather of the ones who hated the Jews the most, the Nazis. Who is this? Who is this person? This person actually has a very illustrious ancestry. He is the grandson of the great Yitzchak, Isaac. So Isaac could be his great-grandson. Isaac has a son. We know he has Jacob and he has Esau. Esau has a son named Eliphaz. And Eliphaz has a son whose name was Amalek. Now, so it's the great-grandson of Isaac, one of the patriarchs. Now, when Amalek was a small child, his father, Yitzhak's grandson, Eliphaz, wanted to teach him how to be a righteous person and how to attain the world to come. And this is what he told him. He said to him, listen, my uncle, Jacob, is going to be the line of the Jewish people. And he knew from Isaac, he's going to bring the Torah into the world. And so he taught his son Amalek. He said, listen, help the Jewish people. Be part of it. Connect to it. Say, I want to be connected to truth. Okay? I say you want to be connected to it because if you help it, if you're involved in the process, if you shalu shalom Yerushalayim, ask for the peace of Jerusalem. If this is what you want, you will have a portion of the world to come. You'll be the righteous of the world. You'll be hooked into what's true. So you know what Amalek said? He said, "I'm going to be second fiddle to them? No way!" And at that moment, he made his mission in life to go and to do everything against and to harm and to destroy them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very deep thing in terms of a human psyche. It's very, very powerful. You know, it's like, and I want to tell you, just it's very important that we all understand. All people in the world are God's children. And it has to be understood that when God tells the Jewish people they have to teach the Torah and they have to take this responsibility and they have to feel this, that it has to be done in that way. It has to be done in a way where it's genuine. We want to share this. We're all, as we're about to say in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, we'll all put on our shoulders one effort to serve God. So a person could sometimes become haughty and say, I'm going to teach the Torah. That's not good. And a person who's learning it can say, well, I should be second fiddle. I don't want to do that. And that's where the traits of human beings really become crucial. And now I want to share with you the root of anti-Semitism as the Torah teaches us. This is it. It says that Jacob had 12 children, 12 tribes. We know the story that 10 of them, sons of Binyamin, wanted to go and to destroy their brother Yosef. Right? We know the story. That's the story in the Torah. Everyone knows the story. Right? It was the brothers, and they thought Joseph was trying to hurt them. They thought Joseph was bad. They thought Joseph was trying to cut them out. And they interpreted all of Joseph's actions was counter to them. And they decided they needed to kill Joseph. Not because they were bad. They were the very most righteous people. But they decided wrongly that he's coming to kill us. And in Jewish law, we don't say if someone's coming to kill you, you don't say just take it. No. What's the law? Someone comes to kill you, you have to kill them first. Self-defense. You can't go and say if someone comes to kill you, you're going to let him do that. So the brothers said, if Joseph's coming to kill us, we got to take care of him. He's coming to cut us out. He's going to tell our father bad things, whatever they saw. But it wasn't true. It wasn't true. What made them think this that wasn't true? And the answer to what made them think this was there was a sense of favoritism. They thought, Jacob, is he showing favor to Joseph over us? And that made a person crazy. So that is part of the deeper dynamic of the haters. The haters hate because they understand a certain place that if God has taken the Jewish people and said, giving you the Torah, this is your responsibility to share the truth, to provide the conscience of the world, that if a person has bad traits, that creates in them hatred, jealousy, hatred. All that stuff gets stirred up inside, and you create a whole rationalization, And if you listen to the canards against Jews, it's very funny. They had this old story where this, guy was, I don't know if you've ever been to New York City, but when you drive your car in New York, these people come and they wash your windshield, which is like the last thing you want because it's 10 times dirtier when they finish than when they start. It's like, But what happened was, the story goes that this two guys who are washing windshields in the streets of New York, and they see this Jewish guy pulling up. And one says to the other, goes, that cheap Jews, and he's not going to give us anything. They wash the window, roll the window down, and the Jewish guy goes and gives him $100. So the guy looks at his friend, the window washer, his friend, and says, darn Jews, have all the money. So the Jews are the capitalists, they're the communists. Where does it all come from? It comes from that place of when a person doesn't want to accept what God wants in the world and doesn't accept what his role is, and he has anger about it, jealousy about it, he creates a philosophy that starts to stir inside and creates many, many negative things. It's amazing. There's a discussion. There is a discussion that the war at the end of history, we talked about it many times, the war of Gog and Magog. From one of the Midrashim, it seems that's going to happen even after the Mashiach, the Messiah, reveals himself. That's wild. That means there's some group of people that will be so angry when God says, okay, good times are here. And now I've sent you the Mashiach, and the world's going to be there are people who are going to be angry and want to fight that. It's crazy. You're all probably shaking your head. I can't believe it. You're like, because that's not how you all see the world. But you got to know there are many, many, many people who see the world that way. And that is a tremendous, tremendous danger. Now, how many nations of the world are there? So it says there are 70 root nations, which is very fascinating to understand that, because today we're a big hodgepodge. We don't know, it's not. And there's a discussion like in the world today about, America used to be a melting pot. Now everyone wants to have their uniqueness. And there is a certain advantage to having, certain differences that people understand and appreciate some differences. There are 70 roots of the nations of the world, and each one is supposed to have their land. You have to know this. That's why there should never have been any wars. So I talked about it a few weeks ago that Abraham, he was so upset when the first war happened. When the whole story, when he went and he fought against the four kings, he was beside himself that people would fight wars. But I don't get into politics now, but that's part of the problem, is that people don't know who they are, what they are, so they either encroach in other people's lands, or they're sometimes even fighting civil wars because they say they're part of one nation. I'm not going to get into the Russia-Ukraine discussion now, but that is what Russia wants to claim, one nation, not one nation, whatever it is. But there are 70 nations that are supposed to have their own space in the world, and they parallel the Jewish people. Jewish people in 70. And that's the way it works. There's always this 7 days of the week. 70 is the full expression of that. And there is the Jewish people and the parallels of 70 nations. Just like on the Jewish court, the Sanhedrin, there were 70 members, and then there was the leader of the Sanhedrin, the 71st member. So 70 nations each have a place in the world. And the good news is when Mashiach comes, it says that the world will become like the land of Israel. And Israel will be like Jerusalem, meaning the holiness will spread out to the whole world. So these 70 nations, these 70 places, how does that fit in? And what does that mean? And what's the relationship to the Jewish people? And what does it mean that there are those that amongst the 70 nations who hate the Jews, like I talked about, and there's some who love the Jews or feel an affinity to them? What does that mean? So let me explain this. There is in every society, in every culture, in every land of the 7 nations, there is goodness that's inside of it. And what the Jews says when they gone into exile now, it's to pull out the good that exists in these 7 nations. And if you look at it, it's fascinating. Look at, it's an amazing thing. Look at language. Language, it says there's a great phrase. It's a phrase in Aramaic. It says, I love saying it. It's very poetic. I'll say it to you in Aramaic. It says, Lishna kulmasa deliba, which means the tongue is the pen of the heart. So like, you go and you see a French person, and they're like, very flowing, you know? You meet a German person, they talk, very boxed. The language is the reflection of the society and the culture and what they're about. And there is goodness inside of it. That is what has to be brought out. When the 70 nations, and this is like kind of like when you take white light and you run it through a prism and you see the 7 colors
Recording
of the rainbow.
in progress.
See the colors of the rainbow. We'll call it 7, even though it's not so simple as that. But so what that is that that is the broken up aspects of the white light, and each one has its own flavor. That's why it's fascinating. It says in the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy right now, it says Moshe translated the Torah into 70 languages. Wow, why did he do that for? You know why he did that? To give us the ability in every language to connect to the words of the Torah. So there are 70 nations, and these 70 nations have something special in them. And those that are the haters, that's going to be the negativity. That's not you all, and that's not what's happening. Those are the people, and those are the ideas in society that are not the goodness of your land. The ones that are the haters who don't want God's word, will go and fight against the Mashiach when he comes, will be the ones who hate Jews. Those people, there's something very deep and very negative about that. And as I said, it stems, much of it, from personality traits of the angers and jealousies. But the quality of the 70 nations has to be brought into the system. That's what has to be done. And that's why every single one of you has to understand your society that you're coming from, wherever it is, you got to look, what is the goodness of our society? You know, I think about, again, people in different countries, but I was born in America and I grew up in America. And I felt for many years, you know, the one of the great qualities of America was certain idealism. America was an idealism. You know, idea that we're going to make the difference. We could do something, and I do think it's true. But when your country starts to be going directions that are not so good, that's not the way the 70 nations unify to connect to the Jewish people and to connect to God. Every single culture, every single land has to bring out the sparks of goodness within the 70 nations. And each one has its special, unique flavor, which is reflected in its language and its thinking. And the negative parts have to be pushed out. But the good parts are crucial to bring back into the system, that everyone, as we're coming to Rosh Hashanah, the day of judgment, and as I said, it's an incredible verse we pray for, that it says every language will speak a sofer brura, a refined speech to you. Everyone will come with their unique aspect and their society, but now purified in a way where it's contributing to the good part that the nations of the world have to go and to connect. So that's what I want to share with you. Be from, as the Talmud, as the verse says in Psalms, it says, from the Sholei Shalom Yerushalayim, for the ones who ask for the peace of Jerusalem. Because to connect to that goodness means that you have a part in that, as opposed to those like a Moloch who, when they hear connect to the Jews, like, They'll do anything against that. For the ones who say, I want to tune into this. I want to be connected. I want to share in that. I want to be part of that. I want to seek for the good of Jerusalem. And I see that that's where truth is. And how can I be connected to it? Then those become the Hasidim Olam, the righteous of the nations, and bring all of the qualities of their society and of their nation, of the 70 nations, back into the system. Okay, that's my thought. And let's open it up to questions, thoughts.
I got a couple, Rabbi, off on YouTube if you've got a second.
Yeah.
Cookie Monster asked, can one really know what good you are doing for the world?
Well, I think there are two parts to answer that question. You can know if you're doing good. You can know if you're doing good. You have to know if you're doing good. In other words, as opposed to the crazy ideas of the world today, it's not whatever you decide it to be. You can't identify as a good person and be a bad person. You can't hurt people as identify as a kind person. So there are actions that we know are good, and those are defined by the Torah, by the 7 Noahide commandments, and all of the extensions of them, all of the logical commandments that also the Noahides are commanded to. So to know if you're doing good, that you can know. You can't know the ramifications of everything you do. And that's a very important thing. And that's why you need to pray, you need to dive, you need to pray to God that the things that you do should end up causing good effects in the world. Because you don't always know that. In other words, a person goes and let's say, I had a story, and I love sharing the story. A guy, I know him. He's a Jewish Torah teacher in Montreal, and he's helped many people, hundreds, maybe thousands of people. When he was a kid, he didn't know anything about Judaism. He wasn't observant, and he went to synagogue. I don't know, he was 12, 13, but it was a busy place, a big place. And no one said hello to him. He went once, he went twice. The third time he said, if no one says hello to me, I'm not coming back again. Sure enough, the third time this person goes, I've seen you come 2 weeks here and welcome, what's your name? And because of that guy saying hello, this other person I know stayed in the synagogue, eventually became a rabbi, and has helped hundreds of thousands of people. So that one person's hello, a seemingly minuscule, insignificant action, he's going to get rewarded thousands and thousands of people. After that guy dies, he's going to get up to the heavenly court. They're going to have thousands of rewards for him. He's going to say, I didn't help any of these people. They're going to say, no, you did. Because that one time he said hello to that person, he ended up helping him, and he only did it because of you. So we don't know the ramifications. That's hard to know. It's also, I want to say 2 points there. So first, as far as the ramifications goes, that's why you have to pray, if a David, ask God that only good things should come out from us. And you have to try to purify our hearts. And that's really what the other part is, what you're saying, and this question is correct. It's very hard to know what's happening in ourselves because it's easy to fool ourselves. It's easy to think we're not jealous, we're not angry, we're not this, we're not that, we're always right. And therefore it takes a lot of self-analysis and reflection. So the answer is that we don't always know, but the more we try to purify our hearts and ask that and say it. By the way, this is one of the points of prayer. You got to understand this. There's a lot of reasons to pray, but I'll tell you one thing. If you ever see the guy and he says, you say, do you love your wife? And the guy says, yeah. Did you ever tell her? No, but I think it. Well, go ask the wife what she thinks about that. So when you think something, it's one level. When you say it, it becomes a reality. Right? That's the Hebrew word davar, is a thing, is the same as to speak. When I say something, I create something. So if you're thinking something, but you don't put it into some kind of expression, it's very ethereal. When you pray and you say, God, I want my actions to be coming out positive, to be coming out good, to sanctify your name, to elevate the world. So then you've actually helped create a reality. And God willing, and if you ask it, that request is going to happen. So the answer to the question is, we know when we're doing right, we know when we're doing wrong, we have to know that. How subtly are we worked out and what the ramifications of our actions, that's hard to know. And the solution I have for that is to try to make yourself as pure as you can and say out what is your deepest wishes. Because once you say it, it becomes real. Okay.
All right, Rabbi, we had one more question from Lara. Lara was asking if you could please repeat when and why Amalek made that decision to be negative.
Yeah. So what I said was Amalek decided that when it says that Eliphaz, the father of Amalek, was teaching him as a child. And it says Eliphaz, who's the grandson of Isaac, had learned Torah from Isaac. So he taught his son Amalek, and he said to him, listen, that you should really go and help the Jews, because that is the way you are going to attain the world to come, and you're going to be spiritual and righteous, to assist them, to be involved with what they're doing, to help them. So that at that moment when he heard and it was presented to him as that he has to connect to them, he said, I'm going to be second fiddle. And that was a decision moment. So it was when he was a child, and that was a decision moment. And then he became a nation. I mean, he was a kid, and then he grew up, and he became a nation, right? Today, we don't know nations are nations, but in the old days, there was a one person. And when they had, 10 kids, and they had 10 kids and 10 kids, then all of a sudden you had a nation. So he became the nation of Amalek. So it was the moment when he was taught by Eliphaz, the grandson of Isaac, to go and to connect to the Jewish people and assist them. And he felt that that was demeaning to him. And he decided that not only am I not going to do that, I'm going to make my mission to take them down. Yeah. And it's amazing because it happens all the time. I don't know people who have brothers and sisters, but sibling rivalry is a real thing. And I'm in Israel now. My kids all moved to Israel. They all moved back. So I'm in here now, and it's fascinating because, who am I spending more time with?
Well, that's all the questions I got for now online. I have opened it up on Facebook and YouTube. If you got any questions for the rabbi, he will open up the forum. If you have any question and want to ask a rabbi, it's open. So feel free out there on the Noahide Society Canada, Noahide World Center page, and on YouTube as well. If not, Rod, I'm going to turn it over to you if you got any questions in the Zoom room.
Okay, we're going to open the floor up now. So if you have questions, raise your hand and we'll get to it. I just wanted to comment, Rabbi. One thing that just came into my mind when you're talking about how do I know that I'm doing good? There's a lot of people that are not in positions of the ability to do great charity or great, things to affect people's lives. But they have to realize also the very fact that they're refining themselves and doing Torah study and attempting to develop the highest level of musar, ethics, and character development, that they are making a difference, because that is the prescription for all humanity.
Right. I appreciate you added that, because I want to make it needs to be understood, because we have a different vision of when people talk about, I'm doing good. Not everyone is going to be a brain surgeon of this and that, and that's not what we have to do. You have to do good right where you are. And it's not about how big an effect, on the Times Man or Woman of the Year. That's not what it's about at all. What it's about is that I've always told you that famous story of the rabbi who said, when I was a kid, I said, I'm going to change the world. And then I said, I'm going to change my city. And then I'm going to change my town. At the end, I said, I'll change myself. So you got to deal with now. It doesn't mean you're selfish, but it means that and I want to explain it because the point that Rogers brought up is a very important point. It's not because you're doing more or less. It's because everyone has something to do in the picture. That when you do your aspect, you're fixing up the system. So if you have a car, you can't say, well, what's more important, the tire or the steering wheel? Because without the tire, the car is not going anyplace. Without the steering wheel, without the engine, it's all needed. So everyone has to take their role, what they have to do,
right,
and they have to do that right. So if you work on yourself, you learn Torah, it's gonna come out in the people around you.
It is,
and it's gonna create a ripple effect in the world.
Yeah, you don't have to become some religious extrovert to do the purpose of Hashem.
That's right.
In the world you're
right.
in. Yeah,
that's very important. Very important. Thanks for.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of times people hear this and go, "Oh my goodness, I've missed my quote unquote calling."
Right. And it's
great epiphany, and it's not that.
That's not that simple. At all. That's like I had nothing against Tony Robbins. I know NLP myself, but that's a self-help thing. That's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about that you're going to save the world. No, do right in your immediate circles. That is what you have to do. And God's got the show, and you're not. Don't worry. You don't have to save the world.
Rabbi, I've often been amazed at stories that come out of the Holocaust, that in the darkest place where almost impossible to do a mitzvah, right? Almost impossible. Like you couldn't get more dark of a place, and a place that you can excuse and go, I'm not bothering with any of this. None of this matters right now. Where you hear these stories of rabbis that have gone to the fullest extent to eke out some part of tradition during a high holy day, or doing something for another Jew, not even a Jew, just another person in the camp, is the difference. I guess the thing is we live in a postmodern society, information, and we live in a very comfortable world right now, and people start thinking like, for example, the United States suffers from what I call a first world problem, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're trying to fix things that don't need to be fixed.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you want to change other people. Right. But the whole point is do what is important at the moment. Forget about trying to do down the road. Do what is important now. That is such an important message.
Yeah. And what's important, and it's even by like the laws of charity, it says you start with your hometown, your local people. That's where everything starts. And if for whatever reason God moves the reality that you're able to make a universal effect, then you have to do it. It's not like it's not like you have to, you got to do what your role is. If you're in the army, and you're stationed to do this, then do that, and then if they call you and say, okay, we need you to do something else, then you do that. But you have to do what your role is. And that's very important, because otherwise, and I'm glad you really pointed this out, because the reason why, I didn't think of putting this, and I'm glad you said this, is because when you hear like self-help things and people talking about that, it's like, you wonder, like, okay, you're going to go for it. How many people are going to, invent the next Apple computer? I mean, I'm not saying that's the best thing, but I'm saying, but like, it becomes but that's because the reason why it's so misunderstood is really because the question that was just asked, because people don't know what good is.
Right.
That's that God's telling you to do the commandments. That's good. That is the definition of good. So, that's what the word mitzvah means. The deeper meaning of the word mitzvah, people think it means commandment. It's true. It's one level. But the word mitzvah, also the word tzavta, means a connection. It's your spiritual connection. When you do this action, you are creating an effect that's going to change who you are, and that's what you
I
got
think
to do.
I think in many aspects, especially people coming from the nations, they've never been given a diet, except for those of us in this community. But people have not been given a diet that says that when I study, when I make improvements on myself, and I improve my family, I improve my community to the best of my abilities, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know, it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel here. It's like do what you know supposed to do, and you know you're doing a good job when you're following the prescription of Hashem. That's
Right.
it. That's bottom line the deal. It's like me
That's
working
right.
for a company. I never have to go to the boss and ask if I'm doing a good job if I know I'm fulfilling all the requirements for my job. Like,
Right.
I don't have to
Right.
keep going
Good
up and
point.
I need to do something bigger for the company. No, just do your job first, and then we'll see that you're promoted
Right.
to do
Then
something else.
you'll see. They'll tell you when you got
Right.
to work. Very good. Good point.
Who
Good.
else?
What else we got?
Who else? Who'll be first? Comments? Questions? Dan?
One more. Cookie is asking again. An important question for me is whether it is permissible to create abstract paintings with the intention of remembering the viewer of Hashem's light, or is that also considered as attributing power to an image?
I mean, from what you're describing, it doesn't sound like it's an image of something. If it's not an image of something, if it's an abstract thing that you're doing that's making people feel connected, then I don't see the problem. But again, you don't want to make it you're drawing what you say is a picture of a version of God. That's a problem. Obviously, there's no picture. But if you're making an abstract thing to have people think about God and think about connect, if that's the way you're doing it, shouldn't be a problem. In other words, if you're drawing an image that this image represents something, represents God in some way, that's a problem. But if you're drawing an abstract, like there's a picture behind me, so it's an abstract picture, some sort, I guess. So if a person is doing that and hoping that people will then see the picture and think of God, but not try to visualize God, which is not possible, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I've got a large picture on my wall that's a painting, a print from a very famous painting that was signed by the author, and it's someone at the Wailing Wall praying. Right, it's got the kotel, he's got the whole regalia on, and he's praying. And my grandson comes up and he sees that and he goes, "What is this? What's this about?" And I said, "Well, this is a depiction of a Jew praying at the kotel." And he goes, "What is he praying for?" And he's asking questions based on what he's seeing. I've never even contemplate what he's praying for. And I thought, well, what would any Jew be praying for at the wall? And I told him he's praying for the peace of Israel. He's praying for the nations to come to Hashem, to God. And I said, that's what that picture represents. And he was like, he was like the light went off. It was like, oh, it's not just a picture, but it's a perception that this abstract copy of a Jew making a prayer at the wall has so much meaning behind it. And that's a beautiful value.
Right. Yeah, I have to remember, we do pray 3 times a day for the entire world. True. And also just to remind people that but the Western Wall, because people lose the context. I know you're not saying this, but just to remember, the Western Wall was the wall around the mountain,
right,
that the temple was on. It's not the Temple Mount. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. The Temple Mount, is where they put, and afterwards the Dome of the Rock, as we spoke about. That's in Temple Mount, and that's where Jews are, can get arrested for moving their lips on the Temple Mount. Now, I've heard it's gotten a little better.
Oh,
recently.
Really? Did not know that.
Yeah. I heard that recently, which could be a very, very good sign. Hopefully, because I heard it's gotten a little better. Because that's the Temple Mount is really, the place. It's still funny that we're relegated to praying at the wall, which is on the outside of the mountain, as opposed
Right.
to.
It's the closest you're going to get.
That's right.
So Mashiach comes, right?
Right. Yeah. Right now. Right. Well, yeah. There's different discussions. I'm gonna be going through that topic now that I'm in Israel, a little bit more in detail. Where exactly we can go, we can't go, how to go. So I hope to catch up on that topic, which I plan to do.
I also think it would be interesting if you could, while you're there, provide us an honest assessment of a Jew in exile visiting in the land. What has changed between last year and this year, year before and this year? I'd be just interested in the environment of society, because that would be really interesting for us to know, like what's happening in the dynamics of the nation, of the land.
I'm picking up some interesting stuff here from what I see. I do see latest news about how things have shifted, if there's no shift, like what's I think there's an interesting. I'll talk about it. It's an interesting societal shift. It's fascinating. There's no government in Israel now.
I know, but wouldn't that be a sign that we need Mashiach now more than ever?
I don't know. Not having government's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think any of us would suffer if our government would go to minimal manning.
yeah, right. A little less government. Just stay out.
Right. I do find it interesting that you mentioned, because I've not heard very many people mention the fact that it's possible, and because there are prophetic utterances that seem to indicate that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a battle against Mashiach.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of clear, and you think, well, who would battle against that? And then I realized there are some people that are so bent on anarchy, so bent on anti-God, whatever, that they would literally give God the middle finger on the hallway to hell. Like, that's just how they are. They are steeped in such rebellion.
Yeah, that's really what I was trying to explain. And it really comes from a very, and you could think about it. I started talking about with what Hitler wrote. I mean, it's incredible that a person would say that they understood that the Jewish people are representing something, and that was the hatred. That these people are, and that's a Molech. So, and ladies and gentlemen, it's not. You don't have to go far now, because look what's happened. The world is, as I tell you. I mean, it's fascinating, and I think maybe that's the good news. I'll get to maybe in the next session. But I think that although I feel that we're in some trouble in the Western countries, I think that the people in the land of Israel are thank God, in a good path. It's like, there's almost like every day, like a secular Israeli movie star or singer becomes observant, and like it shakes people up. Like,
how about NFL basketball players that have converted to Orthodox Judaism and now are on the path of learning. Actually, one of them just quit his very lucrative training position because he wants to get involved in teaching. Like, he wants to. I mean, he's gone to yeshiva. He's wanting to teach.
Mari Stoudemire.
Stoudemire, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like he said, I can no longer do this job because it requires me to work on Shabbos, and so I'm done. Right. And to think that decision, that's not chump change.
Yeah. Like, no,
that's a serious thing for you to do. Right. And most of us
Rabbi, can you take one more question online?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
go for it.
I've got Barbara on Facebook asking an important question to her. She says, "I need to know how to address an issue at work. I work alongside with people in transition from male to female, etc. I'm required to address them from what they identify, or as what they identify with currently, such as Nathan to Natalie, etc." She says, "I feel uncomfortable. What should I do? I feel I can't comply."
Crazy world. So I mean, is there a way to avoid saying the he or she? In other words, Nathan to Natalie, those are names. Those are not really significant, a person could have any name they want, so you can call them their names. Is there a way to avoid pronouns? In other words, I mean, ask Bar, make it tell Dan what you think. Is there a way to like just say, can you, or say the person's name, even if the name is then Nathan or Natalie? I think that's, if you can pull that off, that would be better. I'm not telling you have to give your job up for it if they're going to fire you, but because I think it's just insanity. It's not so meaningful. But I think that if you'd feel more comfortable, if there's a way, like I sometimes, you have to be very careful. But I sometimes, when I have to talk to certain people, I try to avoid and say certain things in certain ways. So like if you don't have to say, let's say you say, instead of can she be part of this meeting, you say, can Natalie be part of it, or Nathan be part of the meeting? I don't think changing the name is any admission of your having to buy into their gender dysphoria, but I think that if you say the name they want to be called, that's less problematic for you than to say he is a she. So if you could try to avoid that, and then you won't get yourself in trouble. And there's no point in fighting with these people, because they're literally out of their minds. I mean, and as you can see, what's happened recently, and there's no end to this, it's like, they are going to demonize any beliefs that are other than theirs. And the craziest part about it is that nobody believed these things 5 years ago. It's like, it's not, if you told me you had some, truth from time immemorial that you were talking about, but you yourself didn't believe it 5 years ago. 5 years ago, everyone thought, that countries needed borders. Everyone thought that. Now, if you think a country needs a border, you're racist. Before 5 years ago, everyone thought there were men and women. Now, if you think that, you're also a racist. You're a sexist, whatever you are. So these people, they don't. There's no one to talk to. So there's no point in engaging. But Barbara, if there's a way that you can try to just to keep for your own values, to limit how you play into their nonsense, then that would be better. So if you can call the person by their name, changing their name from Nathan to Natalie, that doesn't mean anything, because there's no name per se that makes them male or female. A man can, wasn't that a Johnny Cash song, A Boy Named Sue or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So they can have a name they wanted to. So, but if you said he or she, you're going to feel, rightfully so, that you're compromising what you know to be true. So maybe try to avoid using pronouns, that you won't get into their problem, and find other ways to say it, like talking second person of you when you speak to them, or using their name in instead of using a pronoun to describe them. That's what I recommend.
Good advice.
Thank you for walking that political tightrope for us, Rabbi.
Yeah, it's a rough thing, and it's very sad, and I don't mean to bring down any hatred upon, God forbid, upon anyone who has gender dysphoria. I just
exactly
just to go into and to push it all in our faces that we have to be believing what you believe is a little bit much.
Yeah, we have to exercise. We have to exercise a tremendous amount of wisdom, because our Torah can easily be judged on the slightest miscalculation on how you present truth. And it's like, you've got to just be careful and know when it's time to say the right thing. You have to be careful,
but you also but you also have to remember, and this is the problem. You have to remember that to talk to someone and to explain something, you need to have a person that you could talk to.
Right.
And you have to realize, I mean, there's just sometimes it's just you see there's no one to talk to. There's no one to talk to. There really isn't.
Right.
And so guys, the people who believe the Facebook blips or the this and that, and they can't think past it. It's unfortunate, and so I try to. I don't like giving up on people. I try to talk and have them understand. But we are in a very frightening time, and I always tell you, I mean, the social media, all these things have really. And by the way, to me, this is so. And even being in Israel now, it's so clear how this is playing into a different reality that's going to happen. Things have changed very fast. Well, things have changed in the past couple of years are very fast. And there may be a pendulum swing back the other way that people, and hopefully there will be. But there's some damage that's in the system, and it's going to need a real redemption that will happen, soon, because people have lost their way. And some of them are seeing it, and some other people are picking it up. So there's many things that have happened that are happening. So when you find someone that you can't talk to, and it's gonna endanger your job and all those things, you don't need to. Just go dance between the raindrops and go on.
I like that phrase, dance between the raindrops, because you're gonna get wet no matter what.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys.
Dan, are we still on times?
What's that? So
Dan, are we about up?
Yeah, I can wind it down here.
Yeah,
okay,
we are done. I do think, but it's from the calendar. I don't know when. There's 2 weeks for Rosh Hashanah. All right, we have to send a message out because I'm not sure if 2 weeks from now is the day before Rosh Hashanah. So
it is the day before.
Yeah,
2 weeks from now is
the day before.
So 25th. All right. If it's the full day before, but it's Sunday night, I think is Rosh Hashanah. So that would be Sunday night.
Yeah, it starts at sundown Sunday night, which would be already in your Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
If you have to go a little earlier, let us know, or you let us know, Rabbi, the time, and I'll try to tee it up with Rod.
All right, I will send a message out exactly on our next session.
If you want to do it on the 18th, the day before, the Sunday before, or the week after, that's fine. Just let us know.
Okay, I will send a message out to Ron and to Dan, and look forward to seeing you all very soon from the Holy Land.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi. Well, there you have it, folks, for this week for our Working Together series with our friends down in Netiv in Houston. Thank you, everybody. We will let you know when we're coming live again next here on the Noah Hyde World Center social media. And please write down your questions if they're very important to you, and the Rabbi will do his best to address that concern of yours and make sure you get a legitimate Torah answer. So I like today's message. You can make the world a better place. I am confident that the Rabbi's message had a lot to do with how you can improve the world, and definitely speaks to the 70 nations and our role. So till next time, we're going to sign out. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Rod.
Okay, let me just say this: for you guys that are listening on FaceTime and YouTube, make sure that you can join us live in the classes each week. If you go to Netiv Center go to Netiv Netiv online.org. You'll be able to go to the website and sign up, so we can make sure we put you on the email address. We have about 5 classes per week. You're welcome to join us on the live Zoom classes. We'd love to see you here. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
and thank you, everybody, for watching.
And wish you well. All the best.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions you want to share before we go? Sully?
All right,
yes, sir.
folks. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
So I actually was hoping to kind of slide this in there, but I wanted to be respectful of Rabbi's time. But the question was brought up: how do I know if I'm